I think we should not get ahead of ourselves, thinking that everything is fine, everything is going to be flowing freely. I think that kind of a feeling we should guard against. We should be careful in what we are doing. I'm sure the government will do that, and we should not be very enthusiastic and go ahead of ourselves.
You're on the gist on Strat News Global. I'm Surya Gangadharan. Are India and China heading for an early harvest on their disputed border? That's the big topic we have for gist today. And my guest is General Narasimhan, a former defense attache in Beijing. He's a Mandarin speaker. He was also head of the Ministry of External Affairs, China think tank, the Center for Contemporary Chinese Studies. General Narasimhan, glad to have you after a long break.
Thank you. Nice to be on your show.
So we had Wang Yi's visit, the Chinese foreign minister's visit only the other day. Are we heading for an early harvest? And what is an early harvest? What are we talking about?
Okay, there are two things. One is what is an early harvest, and what are we talking about as far as delimitation is concerned. Okay, early harvest is something which can be easily achieved. Simply put, that is what it means. And if you look at the boundary question, there are three sectors that are involved: west, middle, and the eastern sectors. Okay, amongst them, the easiest to resolve is the middle sector. That is one issue that we need to have. But before, let us not jump the gun. We have to first nominate an expert group which is supposed to be working on this, and then identify the locations that can go for early harvest, and then talk to each other and then come to a finalization. It is, let us not get ahead of ourselves. It is a process that we need to start, negotiate, and then come to a conclusion. But amongst the lot of problems that we have on the border, the easiest ones will be taken first, is what early harvest means.
Mm-hmm. So what prevented kind of a deal earlier? If middle sector is so easy, what was the problem?
You see, there were, off and down, there have been various methodologies that have been used for negotiations. One was taking the whole boundary as one part. The other one was taking the sectors separately. There are many issues that were discussed and many issues that were talked about even with the Chinese earlier and things like that. So the middle sector is the place where we exchange the maps in 2000 to show what is our perception of the line of actual control in that sector. When we shifted to the western sector for exchange of maps, the Chinese pulled out, and then they said that they don't want to exchange these maps. And that is the end of that process that started. Thereafter, a number of efforts have been made to ensure that this process starts again. However, that has not been successful so far. But this visit of Mr. Wang Yi has opened some kind of leeway in that. And I think this expert group, which gets nominated at whatever point in time, will then work out the modalities of which area, how do we go about delimiting it, and things like that. Delimitation simply means identifying the boundary on the ground. But if you look at the Chinese readout that has been put out, they are talking about demarcation. Now, these two are two different terms. Delimitation is actually identifying the line of the boundary on ground. Yeah. Demarcation is actually pitching the boundary pillars and fixing the boundary on ground. These two are two different things that we are talking about. So while we are talking about delimitation, the Chinese readout seems to be talking about demarcation. So that is something that needs to be bridged. So there are a lot of work that is ahead of us, and I am sure that we will continue to go along that path and see how much we can achieve in a quick time frame.
Given that the Chinese have stonewalled in the past on even the exchange of maps, have they ever indicated why they did so? Or what is the issue for them?
The issue of going back from the maps is because they didn't seem to be agreeing with our line, which we had depicted on the western sector, as our perception of the line of actual control. That probably was the reason. But after that, they were not interested in that process.
So suddenly, why has this now been deemed acceptable?
The line of actual control, that map, is something which has not been talked about in this entire readout that you see. That has not been talked about. What they are talking about is the early harvest of areas which can be delimited. The boundary, where the boundary can be delimited, is what is being talked about. And so we need to wait and watch as to how this develops over a period of time. How the expert group gets constituted, how are they going to work on ground, and things like that is something that we need to wait and watch.
So tell me, yeah.
If you're asking why this change has happened, starting from 2020 onwards, when we had this Galwan incident, thereafter a freeze in the relationship. Slowly, starting from 2022, when we had that what do you call it, disengagement that took place on the border.
Yeah.
Then we signed the agreement on 22nd of October 2024 as to complete that disengagement process. Things have been moving slowly and steadily. And the Chinese have been actually saying that we should put the border issue on the proper place, and then we should proceed along the other issues. However, our stance has been that, if the boundary remains contested, and if lives are going to be lost on the boundary and face-offs are going to occur, there is no point in proceeding along that other parts of the relationship, like economy, people-to-people contact, visas, direct flights, etc., etc. I think from both sides there seems to have an understanding that we must move on from what happened and bring back some kind of semblance of normalcy in this relationship. That is one. The number two is Mr. Wangi also met Prime Minister Modi, and he gave the invitation for the summit meeting that is going to take place in China. Okay, so that is another thing. If Mr. Modi is going to go to China and he has got a problem on the border and other issues are hanging fire, then it will be difficult to actually justify that visit. So Chinese must have relented on it so that the visit takes place and the summit meeting goes off well. That is the second issue. Third issue is, if you look at the international relations aspect at this point in time, you have a lot of pressure coming in from US on both India and China. Yeah. So that brings probably both together a little bit. But let me have a word of caution here. I think we should not get ahead of ourselves, thinking that everything is fine, everything is going to be flowing freely. I think that kind of a feeling we should guard against. We should be careful in what we are doing. I'm sure the government will do that. And we should not be very enthusiastic and go ahead of ourselves. That is the point I would like to make.
There's the other point that could the Chinese be using this as a kind of a process to delay and divert and all? Because I noticed that there's a reference to setting up an expert group, then a working group within the working mechanism. I mean, there's a multiplicity of these little groups when you deal with the Chinese on these issues, isn't there?
No, I don't think so. Both these groups, the expert group as well as the working group, they are supposed to be functioning under the working mechanism for consultation and coordination, WMCC. They both are supposed to be working under that. So that is MEA driven. They have also made a proposal to have general level contacts in the middle sector and in the eastern sector, like we have been having in the western sector. That may be under the MOD and the army. So these are two different things. Let's not mix them up. And under the WMCC, there are two things. One is the expert group, which is working towards early harvest resolution or delimitation of the border. The second one is supposed to be working on the border management. That things like face-offs don't occur, and if they occur, they don't escalate. I get a feeling that they will probably go through the standard operating procedures and other things that we establish over a period of time and see where we can improve those things. I think that is the kind of work probably the working group would do. So the expert group, while it is working on the boundary and the delimitation of the early harvest process, the working group is supposed to be working on the border management. These two are two different issues.
So the MEA is involved where? It's an overall
MEA is
charge?
involved in both. MEA is involved in both, expert group as well as the working group.
Okay, and it's the overall driver as in the past on the India-China thing?
I think so, yes.
Because we now have an army-led group also, isn't it?
That is right. We have a higher level military commanders meeting that takes place in Eastern Ladakh. But even in that, there is a representation from the MEA.
Okay.
So the MEA also sits on that meetings.
But the fact that a three-star general is going to be running the show,
Correct.
obviously,
He is the
this is going to be
delegation
army
leader.
driven.
Correct. He is the delegation leader. But any kind of support regarding the boundary issue which MEA has been negotiating so far will be given by the MEA rep in those meetings, MEA representation in those meetings.
Mhm. So, in your view, is this a good move to have the army now? I mean, you are the guys who are actually handling the show on the ground.
It is a good thing. Any amount of contact between adversaries is always welcome. Because the more you meet, the more you speak, the more you understand each other, more you understand each other's constraints, their problems, and the positivities. That is always a better thing to keep talking in as many points as we can. So, two more mechanisms wouldn't help, wouldn't actually be a negative thing. It will be a positive thing. And I think we should go ahead and do that.
Tell me a little bit about the middle sector. I mean, this is, I presume, Bara Hoti area in Uttarakhand
That
or
is right.
somewhere?
That is right.
Uh-huh.
That is the area of Bara Hoti mainly. And if you take your mind back, that is the first place where the intrusions took place in 56 and 50, 54 and 56. That is the time the intrusions started taking place. But thereafter, this area remained very quiet. And that is the reason why it has been simpler to handle this particular area better. And that is the easier part of the exchange of maps that took place. So that is something which is considered to be an easier proposition amongst the three sectors.
So, what is our stand on Bara Hoti? Do we say it's ours? Do they say it's theirs?
It is. I wouldn't like to go into the nitty-gritties of that boundary issue at that point in time. There are two or three pockets in the middle sector where they have indicated their perception of the boundary and the line of actual control. Similarly, we have also done that. There are overlapping claims. There are some claims which are different. So the details are actually not open in the open domain. So I won't like to go into the details of it,
Yeah.
though I have seen those maps and dealt with them at some point in time. But the thing is that we need to understand amongst the three sectors, the middle sector is the easier one to handle.
So, the area is not large. I mean, it's, you
It,
mentioned small
it is
pockets.
it is an area which could it's in pockets actually. Couple of pockets are the ones which are actually being questioned. But in lengthwise, if you see, it could go anywhere between 500 to 700 kilometers.
My gosh. That's
When
quite a
you
bit.
come from Eastern Ladakh, come down to Himachal, and from there when you come towards Nepal side, that is that sector.
Okay. And we are present there, Army or ITBP or whatever?
No, we are not present there permanently. We do those patrolling and other things that we do up to the boundary, and
Okay.
we are not having the permanent post right along the line of actual control. I don't think that is there.
And the Chinese also come and go?
Yes, Chinese also come and go.
So, what would a settlement here look like? I mean, uh, what is that we
It
would
is
like to
something.
see?
What we would like to see is to get our area, what we claim as our area, to be on our side. That is what we
Okay.
would like to see. But then that is subject to a matter of negotiation. How would we adjust those lines? How we adjust the watershed? We follow the watershed principle. Watershed means water when it falls on a particular mountain, it flows on either side of the mountain. That is
Yeah.
the watershed. So we follow a watershed principle for the boundary. Where the boundary goes, those things are matter of detail that people have to do on ground. That is a simple thing. But the thing is that we need to understand the principles on which we are going to finalize this and do the delimitation part. And we also need to understand where our line, where our claim line lies, and then how we get to that line is what we need to be working on.
So, Bara Hoti, do we claim all of it? Do we claim parts of it?
See, Bara
The
Hoti is
Chinese,
just one place. It's a plain actually. It's a Bara Hoti
yeah.
plains is what it's called. But Bara Hoti is just the name of that particular place. But otherwise, it extends.
Okay.
There are a number of passes in that area, mountain passes in that area. It extends north and south of Bara Hoti, and then it's an area actually we need to see. It is not a place. So
Okay.
we need to look at it as an area, not a simple place where you can do this agreement part.
Okay. And is it? It has strategic value.
I mean, every border everywhere has got a strategic value.
Yeah.
Wherever you have an adversary's access to that area, it will become strategic. Where he can come at any point in time when he wants. So
Yeah.
on the border, we can't really say which is important, which is not important. We need to be actually working to get what is beneficial for us. That is what we need to be looking at.
Mhm. What about Sikkim?
Sikkim is we consider it as a settled border. There are
Hmm.
a couple of issues that came up. One is in the area of finger, which I'm sure in the media everything is there actually. One is in
Yeah.
the area of the finger in North Sikkim, and one is in the area of Nakula, which is further south. When you come down from finger on the
Yeah.
western side, it is closer to Kanchenjunga range, and south of that is the area of Mugutang sector, wherein
Mhm.
you have this issue of Nakula coming up, and that is a later introduction into the game. I mean, this finger issue started sometime around 2007, and this
Mhm.
Nakula issue started sometime around I think 2012, 13, 14, around that time. So these are later issues. If those two are sorted out, I think Sikkim is by and large the other areas are very clear.
Mhm. The Chinese have been playing games with Sikkim, isn't it? Sometimes disputing it, playing, those little games they play.
In 2017, they started constructing a road across the Torsa Nala, which is there in the area of Dokala,
Hmm.
where we went and stopped them from constructing that road. So there's a bit of a issue on the boundary where that tri-junction between Bhutan, India, and China is. That is an issue that needs to be resolved. So these are the 3 points as far as Sikkim is concerned. If these three are resolved, I think Sikkim is by and large a settled territory. I don't think there is a major problem there.
Hmm. I mean, would you want to hazard a guess as to how long this could take? I mean, sorting out maps and all that.
It will just be a guess, if at all I guess.
Yeah.
I'm sure it will take at least a couple of years, if not more.
Oh, yeah. I presume. I think the Chinese will want to drag this
Because
out as.
what would happen? What would happen is after the expert groups are formed, they have to discuss the modality, and
Hmm.
thereafter then decide on how to go about negotiating this entire thing, delimiting this entire thing. So it is going to take time. That is why I said let us not get ahead of ourselves. So
Yeah.
we need to have patience to do this in a steady manner so that we get what we want.
Hmm. So the army will be the key player here.
Uh, Definitely on the ground, yes, definitely. If on the ground things are to be done, I think it is the armed forces that would come in handy. And in the negotiations, I am sure there will be the MEA also will be part of it, and then it will be a joint effort between MEA and the army to do this.
Hmm. So I want you to put on your DA hat now, and are the Chinese motivations, um, you know, are they sincere about what they're doing? Is there something they've proposed they are ready to go along with? Looking at the larger international picture, they find they have something to gain.
See, my worry with this is, I mean, whatever has happened yesterday is a positive thing. Let's
Yeah.
keep that particular thing in the center of this. But then you find that whenever the things improve, they again also go back. Like for
Uh-huh.
example, the period between 2002, 3 to about 2008, 9, there was a good. In fact, I would say starting from 1988 when Rajiv Gandhi went there, till
Yeah.
about 2014, 15 when the border incident started worrying us.
Hmm.
That was a period in which there was an improvement in the relationship, and we signed number of agreements, etc. We created number of standard operating procedures, etc. And so that is something which has been going on for a long period of time. But then
Hmm.
things went south again.
Hmm.
So in these things, I don't think there is a standard curve that you can see which is going only up. There will be some ups and downs that we need to be prepared for. And I'm sure our government and the MEA and the armed forces are already working on this as to how to handle this. And the second thing that you need to look at is like today only we are discussing somewhere. There are there are no permanent friends, there are no permanent enemies in the international relations.
Yeah.
It appears there are also no permanent interests these days.
Hmm.
So interests also vary depending on where the pressures come from, where the pressures are being given, etc. So it is a very unstabilized kind of international system that we are working with. So to that
Hmm.
extent, whatever has happened is good. Let us work on that to get better. That is the way we need to look at it. But if you
Hmm.
are going to ask me whether there's going to be a permanent fixation, a permanent path, I would I would not bet on that. So I'll be
Hmm.
careful. And I'm sure our government and the armed forces and the ME are also extremely careful in dealing with these issues. Because ultimately history will judge us on this.
Yeah, yeah. Assuming there's a they come to a solution to resolve middle sector and Sikkim, and as you're saying, there's not many great issues over there. Could that be a stepping stone to looking at the larger thing? You think the Chinese will be ready 3 4 years down the road?
Possible. It all depends on how this part of the agreement goes.
Hmm.
That is something that if you want this to be a stepping stone, then they should be resolved to the satisfaction of both the sides.
Yeah, yeah.
If that is done, yes, maybe we'll go to the next sector and try and do something about it. That is possible.
Hmm.
But to bet on that now will be premature.
Yeah. Hmm. You think? I mean, overall, there's a general sense that India and China ideally should settle for what each has, what each territory the other has, and perhaps that's the pragmatic way to go forward. What's your view on that?
This suggestion has been put across many times. This is not a new suggestion. Okay.
Hmm.
But what we need to understand is on as is where is, we'll be losing a lot of territory. Are we prepared for it? Is something that we need to decide.
Hmm.
That is the point that is a bone of contention in this.
Even if we are not in physical possession of the territory now.
Yes, because otherwise your entire map will change.
Yeah,
The map that you've seen and grown
yeah.
from when you are young to now, that map will change totally. Are we willing to accept that?
Hmm. So
As it
perhaps
is,
there is
there
some.
is as it is on the western side, you found that that agreement on the LOC which went up to NJ 9842 has created problems for us in
Yeah,
Siachen and other areas, right? On the other side, well, first thing that half is gone. That Gilgit Baltistan area
yeah,
is not part anymore. If
yeah.
you also lose Aksai Chin, in fact, please look at your map, how it will look.
Hmm.
Are you willing to
Yeah.
go through all that? Is something that, that's a call that we have to take very, very carefully.
Hmm. I mean, the Chinese really have no. If the Chinese are going to be building a new railway line through, I don't
Yes.
suppose.
You see, the problem that you will find in Eastern Ladakh is that, they need depth for the Western access that they have,
Yeah.
the Western highway, what they call a G219. That highway needs depth. So obviously, there will be issues there. So those are matter of negotiation. So that needs to be left to the government and see what they do. So let us
Hmm.
not prejudge on that. But I think what we have got yesterday was a positive step. We need to build on that.
Okay. On that note, General Narasimhan, thank you very much for that perspective, and it's great talking to you again on these issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
That's all we have for you on this edition of The Gist. Do subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on social media. Thank you very much. Good day.